Welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Podcast, hosted by CRM technology and sales process expert Christopher Smith, talking with sales leaders that have separated themselves from the rest of the pack. Listen to find out how the best of the best achieve success with their team and CRM technology. And remember, unless you are the lead dog, the view never changes.
Welcome to Sales Lead Dog. Today I have joining me Rick Jordan. Rick, there's so many different ways I can introduce you. Rick is a big-time serial entrepreneur. He is a very popular speaker, coach. He has his own podcast, All In with Rick Jordan, as well as he's the CEO of his own business, ReachOut Technology. Rick, welcome to Sales Lead Dog.
What's shaking, my man? How you doing, Chris?
You've got a lot shaking.
Yeah. I don't know any other way, brother.
Yeah, no, I that's been my life since I started my first company. I was 23. You just like go all in.
Yep, that's how it has to be. Absolutely.
Yep. Awesome. Rick, tell me a bit about, let's start. I want to hear a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
All right. Well, it's been going now for 6 years. We've got, over 500 episodes that are out there. And, it started, I love the story of this because when I first got into launching a personal brand, if I could even call it that, like I didn't really know that at the time in 2018 that I was launching this thing that had a label. I just really started going out there and speaking and going on TV. I just thought the bigger that I could make my presence in things, that it would benefit me all around, and it's a good lesson on personal branding too. I mean, especially when we're talking about sales, it's like, you got to be findable, man. That's one of the things I thought years ago, because nowadays you go out and you're trying to make a deal or whatever, you meet a prospect, they're Googling you, not just the customer, but they're Googling you personally. See where you come from, what you're all about. And when I launched the personal brand, it was about a year into it, I hired a branding agency. And the first one, I've gone through 3, and now I do everything in-house now. But the first one was like, hey, you know what? As long as we're talking about social and everything, you need a podcast. Yeah, and I was like, all right, then let's go. Everyone asks, when they're talking about the podcast, because it's globally ranked, and I'm grateful for how successful it's been. Like, why just start it? That's the one question everybody asks. And I'm like, well, because somebody told me to. Literally, that was it. It's like, you need this. I'm like, okay. But then going through it, I mean, I had some great guests right off the bat, just from forming connections and networking. I think Naveen Jain was one of my very first ones, within the first 6 episodes or whatever. And he and I have been friends ever since. But just an incredible experience, man, going through this. And I'm never going to stop.
Yeah.
Even when things start to get, sometimes they can become a grind. Because, I mean, I'm the CEO of a cybersecurity company. We just took it public a year ago. There's a lot of things that demand my bandwidth, but this is something I'm going to keep doing forever because I love meeting new people. And even more so from a sales perspective, dude, it is absolutely essential for any salesperson to continue to grow your linguistic abilities. And a podcast is a way to do that. I do solo episodes. I interview guests. A lot of episodes I do solo because obviously I speak on stages. If you count podcasts and, speaking on traditional stages, TV, and, even playing my guitar and then preaching because I was an ordained pastor, all of that, it's like I've been on over 5,000 stages, conservatively speaking, in the last 20 years. So the more that you can do means the more that you can actually speak to whatever situation you're placed in. And better yet, even communicate more clearly.
Oh, I agree. When I started this journey of my podcast, same originate, someone came to me and said, you need to do this.
Yep.
And I'm like, why? And once we went through that, I realized, yeah, he's right. It is about creating a brand. It's getting out there. But one of those tangible benefits is I become very comfortable as a speaker. I thought I was pretty comfortable before, but I'm on a whole new level now.
Yeah.
In my ability to speak, but also what I call tap dance when I'm talking to somebody and they go in a direction maybe I wasn't prepared to go in because of what I'm doing on the podcast. That's all we do.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I've definitely built that muscle.
That's good, brother. I appreciate that. I was on a show a few weeks ago. I don't even remember the name of the show, which is horrible. It was probably the worst show I've ever been on. And I'm okay with saying I'm direct too.
Yeah.
But it was like the first 30 minutes, it was, it was an hour, an hour blocked off of my calendar. But
Yeah.
the first 30 minutes was almost like a pre-interview.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was sitting there, and every single time, like what you were saying, she's like, okay, she would ask a question. I'd be like, I'd answer. I'm like, see, we can just go right into this. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's hit
Yeah.
record.
Let's
Let's
go. Hit
yeah.
record.
And then she says, this is the thing that she's like, well, maybe you're okay to just go off the cuff, but I'm not. I need to know my questions and your answers for the entire show.
Oh my.
And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I think about like sales,
Yeah.
seriously, like
Yeah.
how do you prepare for that? Because
No, you
there are
can't.
curveballs that are thrown every single sales
Yeah.
engagement, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, if you're going to go in there robotic like that, you're never
Yeah.
going to close a deal. If you're
No.
going to go into a podcast like that, you're never going to grow an audience.
No. No. It's I don't in fact when people start telling me when I said like stop talking, save it for the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
Dude, I'm
wanted,
guilty of that. I get into
yeah.
too much combo beforehand.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yep.
nope, stop talking. Let's save it. It's
Yeah.
gonna be good. I know what I'm asking, just and we'll go.
Yep.
And
Even sales team members that I coach, man, or even,
yeah.
other service industry business owners, CEOs, all that. It's like you can have a template, but the
Yeah.
template is just really designed to get you to be a better communicator. And in order to be a better communicator, you have to be listening to everything that person is saying.
Yeah.
And I'll coach. It's like even sales. It's like, that's great, but they also have to feel heard. That's how you're going to make that connection. So whatever they say, they could say, oh, you know what? If you ask it, general sales question, right? It's like, oh, what's your priorities for 2025?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you know what? I'm looking to 20% on top of my revenue, compound annual growth this year, 20%. I'm bumping it up. Like, oh, cool. And then they go on to their next question that's on the form. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
time out.
That's
It's
a
like,
big thing to talk about.
exactly. There's 4 questions, and they can usually be asked in this order in a very successful way for a sales engagement. It's what, then how, then when, then where. Literally in that order. So
Yeah.
it's like the what, I'm going to grow 20%. They gave you that already. It's like, oh, how do you propose to do that? Because that's
Yeah.
not a typical number that somebody would actually just throw out. It seems like you already have a pretty strategic plan.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that strategic plan and how you're going to execute on it? That's one level deep, right? Then
Yeah.
you can go another level deep based of what they say right there, and then one
Yeah.
more. You should always go 3 levels deeper
Yeah.
than that very top question that you ask.
Oh no, it's crazy. And yeah, I could agree with you more. It's yeah, it's kind of like, okay, I can't relate to that because I'm like you. I'm like, I love the dance.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's part of the energy is that, hey, I'm asking a question. I don't know how you're going to answer it, but I've been doing this long enough. I know I'll be able to riff off of it.
totally. A
And
good
it
friend of
truly
mine,
is a
David Meltzer, always
dance.
says, be more interested than interesting. And I always define it myself as curiosity,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and it's intentional curiosity.
yeah. And that's such a good way to put it because when you are talking to someone and they do that to me, it's very clear they're not even listening. They're thinking
Yeah.
about what's their next question that they
Oh,
want to
yeah.
get to.
That's listening to respond, right?
It's exactly. It's like you're not you're following some script or whatever. You don't even care. I had a
Yep.
phone call like that the other night. This student called me to raise money for my school, and I knew what it was for. But the way that she did it, and I knew she was following a script. She just tried to get through a script. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
this is not working. I know
totally.
what you're doing.
I know.
You're
I know.
feigning interest in me to get where you want to go.
Yeah,
And you can't do that in sales.
exactly. There is some good things to be said about a script though, because it's
Yeah.
and there's a phrase I'll use. It's like you should know your script if you have a script. If you're doing cold calls or whatever
Yeah.
else,
Yep.
beyond memorization. You should memorize it beyond memorization,
Yep.
because that way, to your point, Chris, you can actually kind of weave in and out,
Yeah.
except that you're always coming back to that because you're always going to a destination. But
That's
if they
right.
throw something out there, you can ask those 3-level deep questions, find out more information, then go right back to it. I
Exactly.
always say for cold callers, it's like, this is great. You can ask this question here, right? And then sometimes it's like, no matter what their answer is,
Yeah.
you can go right to the next question. It
Yeah.
doesn't,
Oh, yeah.
like, what if they say this? It's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And what does matter is that you're taking a mental note to what they said so you can bring that home at the end and book the appointment, ask for the order, or whatever it is, because now you're gaining more information about really who they are and what they're about.
100%. Let's dive a little bit deeper into what you're about.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know Rick's story, I'm gonna have him share it with you. Tell our listeners how you ended up in sales. I think it's a pretty fascinating story.
Oh man, the very first, actually I think it maybe even earlier that the story I typically tell is about McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best. It really is because I mean I was the first Geek Squad agent in Chicago, several years after that. But when I was brought into Geek Squad, I was a manager at the tech bench at Best Buy. I was doing like project management before that for Merrill Lynch, doing enterprise level IT stuff. But really, sales was the gig, man. I mean, before that, I was a store manager for Radio Shack, which is all sales. Prior to that, though, dude, McDonald's. So when corporate at Geek Squad, when we had these 7 test stores within Best Buy all across the country, they were integrating this new acquisition. They come to me, it's like, Rick, we don't get it. Why are your per ticket sales 3 times higher than the other 6 test stores? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? They're like, no, your revenue. Like, I'm like, oh, you're tracking that. That's good. They're like, yeah, your per ticket is 3 times higher. How are you doing this? I'm like, well, have you ever worked at McDonald's? And that crew was like, no. I'm like, well, I can tell you've eaten there, a little bit of a joke. I used to be pretty big too, right? I used to be 280 pounds, all fat, not like 215, all muscle like I am now. But but looking at that, I'm like, well, you've eaten there, obviously. What happens when you order something? Yeah, it's like there's always an upsell. So and it's not just one, and this is important for sales too, right? There's always got to be somewhere to go. Because if it's, oh, I want a quarter pounder today. Oh, would you like a Coke and a fry with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, well, I'll make that a meal. It's like, cool. Would you like to supersize that?
Yes.
It's another thing, right?
Yep.
That they can continue to add on to that. But even if you come into McDonald's and you're like, I want a quarter pounder with cheese meal. I want the number 3. I don't know if it's a number 3. Maybe it is. When I worked there, I think it was number 3. Yeah, maybe it still is. I remember the Big Mac meal. Yeah, the Big Mac meal was number 1. Dude, I haven't eaten there, with the exception of emergencies.
Yeah.
Like during COVID, I did in an airport and I got chicken tenders. Okay. Because
Yep.
nothing else was open, but I haven't had the burgers in literally over a decade. So yeah, the Big Mac was 1, double or 2 cheeseburgers was 2, quarter pounder was 3. So it's like if you say, I want a number 3 supersized with a Coke or a Sprite or whatever.
Yep.
What comes next? They always ask, well, would you like an apple pie with that,
Exactly.
sir? There's always something.
There's always something.
Yeah. So when I expressed that to them, they're like, they still didn't get it, bro. And that was the thing. I was like, come on. I'm like, when I'm out there, and then I had to explain it. I'm like, if I'm sitting there and I'm there to remove a virus because they were looking at some free porn site the night before, I'm looking around and I'm like, hey, your printer shows an error message on it. Can I help you with that while I'm here? So you're looking around for the other opportunities, and usually, dude, those are just right in front of you with any customer. As long as you're listening, as long as you're observing, and especially as long as you're curious.
Yeah, that's the key.
Do you want fries with that? The best sales question ever. Do you want fries with that?
Do you want fries with that? And and you have to have that curiosity, and you have to be, in my opinion, we were talking about this earlier, you have to be genuine in it.
Yeah.
And that you can't come across as just pushy or fake, especially when we're selling what we're, most people are selling these days. It's high value. It's dollar, it's usually get some money behind it. You're not ordering a Big Mac,
I know,
a Happy Meal or whatever,
Yep. That carried into Radio Shack too, brother. Because I mean, at McDonald's, I started there when I was 15. I had to get a work permit, because at 16 years old was the working age in Illinois. I think it's pretty much that across all the states, unless it's agriculture or something.
Yep.
At 15, I went there, and at 15, you were not allowed to work the grill area because of insurance reasons.
Yep.
Yeah, you had to be 16. So I was either on the front register or I was in the drive-through. And they found out real quick that I was actually able to even bump up a lot of the order prices in the drive-through. And it didn't take the thing is too, I mean, there's KPIs in every industry too, right?
Yep.
In fast food, Chick-fil-A has it, McDonald's has it. There's how quickly can you turn those orders through the drive-through?
That's right.
And at the same time, the other KPI is what's the per ticket value?
Yep.
Literally, like that's it. That's all they worry about. How much do we make on average per each one, and how fast can we turn them? The only
Yeah.
two KPIs that matter in that. And I would encourage anybody simplify sales to very simple KPIs too.
Yeah.
It makes people hungrier. They sell better. They
Yep.
just not all these weird complex commission schedules and all of that. Just make it simple, and people will sell more. But I took that because it's like you ask everybody. There's always something to add on. I
Yeah.
took that to Radio Shack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked at McDonald's for maybe 2 years. I took it to Radio Shack, and Christmas, I was 17 years old. I'll never forget this. That season for December, I asked everybody who came up to the counter with anything, right? They would have
Yep.
a pack of AA batteries, right? Or
Yep.
they might have a TV. It didn't matter what it was. They could be buying because Radio Shack sold like resistors and capacitors, right?
Oh yeah.
They were like 19 cents,
Yeah.
okay? Cheap. They'd be like, I just need this. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? A curiosity question because
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm like, I know how to solder, but I don't know how to
Yeah.
use those components. What do you do? Oh, I'm fixing, this board for an RC car or something like that. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. Well, here's the question, right? Well, would you like a cell phone for a penny to go with that?
Yeah.
And it would stop them. It's the same question, dude. It's the same as would
Yeah.
you like fries with that?
Yeah. It
And
is.
people would be like, what? Because
Yeah.
back then phones had contracts, and they were
Yep.
subsidized, but the big thing was phones for a penny. Yeah, this was like 1997, 98, something like that,
Right.
just after the bag phone era. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The first real portable phones. Like,
Yep.
what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, this is what you can do. The plans start at $30 a month. Everybody I think, which I did, I'm like, I got one. I'm like, everybody I think needs to have one of these. Like, I remember, and I would tell a story. My mom, real quick story,
Yep.
when my mom had one of these, she had a bag phone. It was great because she was able to call my dad in a parking lot because she felt unsafe with somebody around her. Very true story, right?
Yep.
He was
Yep.
exposing himself, and she was able to call him and call my dad and call the police. Yeah, it was great. But or
Yep.
you can use it like I do for literally everything. I'm the only
Yeah.
17-year-old that I know that literally just calls all my friends from from a cell phone.
Right. Right.
They're like, wow. So I'm like showing both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It was a 2-minute pitch
Yep.
with starting with the same kind of question. And
Yep.
dude, asking everybody, I sold 300 phones over that month.
Yeah.
And every phone we would get a $100 spiff
Yeah.
as a commission. So
Yep.
17 years old, man, at Radio Shack, I had a $30,000 commission check
Yeah.
for the month of December.
Isn't that crazy?
It was insane. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
bought a new car.
Yeah.
I ended up buying an engagement ring and got engaged. I'm glad that didn't work out. We ended up breaking up, but still, yeah.
Oh, still. Yeah.
Everything. I'm like, I'm making money. Let's go.
Oh yeah. Boy, if that's not going to put a fire in your belly, like, hey, this is a potential future career for me. I don't know
For
what would.
sure. Dude,
Yeah.
it's no joke. Like I thought that I was set for life. And seriously, still to this day,
Yeah.
that is what has made me set for life
Yeah.
is sales. And I
Yeah.
don't care what interaction you are, even if you're a parent in front of your kids, you are seriously selling yourself to your
Yeah.
kids.
Yep.
That you can be a provider, a protector, a nurturer. I'm not talking about any specific gender roles whatsoever here, but it's just, any of those things. You are selling yourself to your kids that this is who I'm going to be for you.
Oh
Everything
yeah.
in life is sales.
Yeah. I believe that. And the other part, when you're telling the stories that you're telling, you're being very genuine and saying, hey, this can help you.
Yeah,
If you're in a
totally.
situation where you need help, this is your mechanism to get the help you need.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
not just, hey, I'm going to sell you something you're never going to use. You're going to stick it in a drawer.
Yeah.
Um,
Right on.
you're helping people. And to me, that's a huge part of selling too, is truly caring about who you're selling to and doing what you can to help them.
Bingo. You got it.
Yep.
There's a lot of fun stories on how we got this started. This
Yeah,
whole
that's
game of
awesome.
sales started.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, I'm a big believer in when you're a leader and you're at the top of your business. But so I don't care where you are in that sales or that leadership hierarchy, when you have a leadership role, it can be very tough to maintain balance.
Yeah.
What's your philosophy for yourself and for what you try to impose your team about maintaining that balance as a leader?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I've been coaching team members on this recently this year. I mean, lots of growth. I've also recognized that there also has to be a lot of leadership coaching. Yeah, it's tough to grow fast. I'm telling you that. I've done it the last 2 years, and some of it's great and some of it really sucks. It's going public, lots of acquisitions, and some of it was great, some of it not so great. When it comes to the people aspect, that's really the toughest part, man.
Yep.
And it's generating new sales to me. I mean, I've been doing it so long, and being able to coach that out, as long as it's the right people, right butts, right seats, it works well. However, the people aspect of it is a little different, and trying to train leaders, because it's coaching leaders, and the phrase I'll use a lot. It's like if they're giving constant praise, and it's like, oh, this is great. You can achieve these incentives, or if it's sales commissions, But almost everybody in the company that I have is incentivized based off of KPIs, even service delivery, And it's like, great, you can do this. Way to go. It's like, but then it's like just brushing over the bad stuff where you didn't make it, And it's I love to win, dude, and it's I'm not this guy who believes in participation trophies or anything like that. So it's like when I put it out to the team to even like, hey, if you have like a top 5 for the day, and it's like I get these 5 things done or I die, like those things. But it really means I win the day,
Yep.
And then it's a concept from Andy Frisella, from MF CEO, and then now it's real AF. But he talks about this. But the thing is like if you miss one of those, you lose. Because the thing is, you're winning the day. It's like, even if you're playing baseball, which I did for 9 years, seriously, you can score 12 runs, which is a high scoring baseball game for any team, right?
Yep.
But if that other team scores 13, you still lost the game. Like, it didn't matter how good you played, because you might have played your heart out and you still lost. So when it comes to the people that are here within my company, it's like you can't have leadership yin without the leadership yang. You can't be all praise and all encouragement and all inspiration while not also saying, hey, you know what? Today you kind of sucked.
Yeah.
And there's a way to get out of this. Maybe it's mental with you today, but it's the same thing like with baseball. I coach just like I lead just like a baseball coach, seriously. Maybe it's because I played it for 9 years. It's like, hey, you know what? 3rd inning, you're not doing so hot today, go sit on the bench. Sit there for 2 innings, get your head right, and then get back into the game.
Yep.
If it's a head thing, but if it's a competency thing, it's like, you know what? I see some improvements you need to make. You struck out 3 times today. I see your swing's a little high. We're going to work on that in practice this week so you don't have this again, because today you didn't really do so well. However, I can see why. So let's put in the hard work and let's fix this. Let's repair this. It has nothing to do, like when it comes to a job, it has nothing to do with like, if you don't do this, you're fired. I hate those kinds of ultimatums, right? Because if a person needs to be fired, you just know. And there's no dragging out. I don't believe in PIPs, performance improvement plans. It's like this person either has the character and the competency, or they have to go. They can't even have one or the other. They have to have both of those.
Yep.
And the competency sometimes you can work on if they are willing. So when it comes to leadership, it's like that's what you have to determine as a leader. What's my time investment that I need to put into this person? Is this person willing to put in the work that they need to put in with my guidance in order to get to a level that is acceptable to where performance is good for the company and they are happy as a human and fulfilled with what they're doing? And those require those really direct conversations, man. Just as direct as you crushed it today. You're going to see 10 grand next month on your check because this is your commissions because you just closed that deal today. Way to go. Celebrate it, right? And then it's the next day, dude. What's the next day? I mean, it's sales, right?
Yeah.
Get your ass back after it. There's more to close. Come on now. Keep going. It's just like a trainer in a gym or something like that,
Yeah.
But dude, there's no way to have the yin without the yang when it comes to leadership. It's high praise and high expectations.
Yeah.
Best way to lead.
No, it really is. It's like, to me, you truly can't be a leader without both sides of that.
Yeah.
And there's factors, there's elements that give you that ability to have that balance. I think it's vulnerability, empathy, being able to listen, being curious. For example, hey, you suck today. What's going on?
Yeah.
What's behind this? Let's talk about this.
What's wrong with saying that too, bro? I don't think there's anything, because it's just like people know. That's the thing. And it's like you're not calling it's like, but when people are sucking it up, they know they're sucking it up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it's coming from a genuine spot as a leader,
Yeah.
a place to where you're not coddling emotions,
Right.
but you're allowing that person to actually grapple reality
Yeah.
and say that, okay, today was not good, or
Yeah.
this month was not good. There's no way to actually move forward and improve unless you have acceptance of the reality where you're at right now.
Yeah.
If you can, as a leader, help somebody accept the reality of where they're at, you are what seriously like one of the best, I'd say top 1% leaders of the world, because that's your job is to be like, this is real. Where we're at right now is real. And guess what? Where we could be a month from now can also be real. So let's chart a course to get there.
That's right.
But in order to do that, we're not going to live in fantasy world today. Oh no.
Right.
No, we got some work to do. That's okay. Or you know what? We really freaking crushed it last month. Now let's continue it to keep hitting the numbers and improve
That's
on
right.
them too, because we're
Right.
doing great.
Yeah. And that's the other part. Again, curiosity in terms of we crushed it. Looking back, why?
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
reasons behind like, hey, what are we do? Did we make some adjustments? What were they? Um, what's behind that? We can't just assume everybody loves us, right? Because that
Yeah.
fades. Beauty
Yep.
fades.
Yep.
You've
I
got to
feel
be
you.
delivering. What are we delivering? What are we saying? Did we make some adjustments? Did we make additional adjustments? You have to have that curiosity.
Right on, brother. Right on.
Um, what is your biggest challenge? What's the hardest thing for you to do as a leader?
As a leader, oh man, I will say that it's actually managing is the hardest thing for me to do as a leader. And I say that because a lot of people think that they're synonymous, and I don't believe that they are. Because it's the consistent development which I'm okay with doing, but it's not my strong suit.
Mhm.
I can pour into somebody and change somebody's life in an instant. But riding somebody, and maybe it's just the circle that I run in because it's the same as me.
Mhm.
It's difficult for me to teach consistency.
Right.
In order for, and I think that that's okay too, but it's better for some other people. So if we're talking like baseball, there's different levels, and it's not that I'm saying like I'm the greatest in the world at all, but there's a major league and there's a minor league. There's a different consistency, resilience, and impact level for those players, whether you're major or minor leagues. And there's a different investment that they have with their heart, I believe, in it as well. So it's like if you want to play with me, it's high performance, and I've had conversations with some of my best people here, even like my number two employee that I hired 13 years ago at the company. I remember this. It was 10 years ago. I believe it was 2014. I'm like, I need to be able to ask you to do things and just know that they're going to get done.
Yep.
Like that's an expectation that I have, so, and if there's an issue, if you don't know how, that's all good. But I expect you to come to me and say, I don't know how. Or if you don't have the bandwidth because there's something else that took priority in your decision, you're a smart human. That's all good.
Yep.
You come to me and
Yep.
say that. So management, which I do believe you absolutely need managers, especially for line level employees, 100%. But there's a difference,
Mhm.
because if you've got leaders at the top, I believe managers come underneath that.
Failure is a big part of selling. You're not even in baseball. No one's you're if you're hitting 400, you're crushing it. You're like Hall of Fame crushing it. How do you leverage failure in your role as a leader?
Wow, failure. I like to redefine that world, man, that world of failure, because I don't know. I did a show, an episode on my show about this, but it was, you know, temporary setbacks versus permanent defeats.
Yes.
And it's a way that I choose to define or redefine that word failure. Because people are like, oh, I failed, and I think that failure over the last couple of years, especially in entrepreneurship, has been glamorized. To the point to where it's like, oh, you get like pixie dust and glitter all over you if you fail. And even this phrase like "fail forward,"
Yeah.
is a phrase that I've heard too.
Yep.
I'm like, well, that's just stupid. People glamorizing this because failure sucks.
It
You
does.
know, I do believe that it's essential to take learnings from that.
Yep.
But straight up, like if I can look at somebody else and be like, oh, you fall on your face over there like 18,000 times. Why'd you do that? I'm not going to do that same thing. I'm learning from what you're doing wrong,
That's right.
and I can take that here. But that this failure thing about, oh, you have to fail in order to succeed. While I think that's like a natural occurrence in life,
Yeah.
I don't think it's something that should be sought out.
Right.
In
Right.
order to fail. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, look at me, I failed so
We're
much.
not trying to fail.
Exactly. And you
Yeah.
hear this from stages all the time, man. Speakers that are up there, look, just touting and boasting about these failures that they had. It's like
Yeah.
great, and I've had some great things come out of really bad moments.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, I wish I didn't have those bad moments.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I think it gets lost in this. And I love the way you're the first person who's answered that question that way, because I feel the same way. You have to reframe failure. I don't particularly care for that word. Um, and I love how you said that. I'm gonna totally rip that off, by the way.
Do it.
Yeah.
Please, let's form an
It's,
army, okay?
yeah,
We're
exactly.
de-glamorizing failure in this.
Yeah. To me, what's key is being able to recognize that you're failing. I think a lot of people don't have that skill.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
keep banging their head against the wall. They're not, because you're saying they're willing to fall on their face that 18,000 time. And instead of saying like, geez, my face hurts, what am I doing that's making my face hurt?
Yeah.
You know? And what do I need to adjust so I don't have to fall on my face again?
Yep. Yep.
And it's being able to recognize failure and pivot. Learn. You have to learn to be able to pivot. You just don't want to pivot in a random direction. You want to stop, assess, learn, and adjust. And to me, that's why I don't like the word failure. To me, it's like, yeah, we'll lose a deal. That's not necessarily failing. Yeah, we didn't hit our quota, or, that's going to impact our quota potentially.
Yeah. Right on.
We have to find
Yep.
something else to replace that. That's fine. That's our world, right?
Yep.
But it's learning, it's assessing, it's pivoting when you need to, it's being able to recognize it and adjust. To me, that's what's key.
For sure.
Do
You go back to the sports analogy, right? With
yeah,
baseball, it's like you've got a whole season to play.
yeah,
So if you lose today, you lose tomorrow. Now I'm from Chicago, and this year, dude, I don't really watch sports too much anymore. Ever since the Bulls won their second three-peat, it just hasn't
yeah,
been the greatest in Chicago, except a few here and there years.
yeah,
But this year, I mean, the White Sox were like the worst team ever. Like literally like record holders now for the worst baseball team in like 100 years.
yeah,
It was rough, bro. Really, really rough. And I didn't watch a single game, and apparently not many Chicagoans did either, just
yeah.
because of how bad they were doing. But in something like that, it's like I kept looking and it's like, where's the adjustment?
Right,
Like you're this far into it. Why do you keep sucking so bad?
right.
And then there's a lot of things that fall into it with this, of course, because there's not enough money getting put in there to, get the right ball players and all that. But then, I watched an old movie that I hadn't seen before, Moneyball, during
Oh
this
yeah,
season with Brad Pitt. Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm like, why don't they do this?
yeah.
It's like this guy, it's like,
Try something.
exactly. There's got to be something different that takes place,
Yeah,
but then, if you're 20 games into a 100 game season, or if you're playing football because there's only, double digits, that's it
yeah,
for the games. It's like you only have so much time to make an adjustment
yeah,
before you reach the end of that. And this is back to that temporary setback or permanent defeat. If your
yeah.
season's over
Yes,
and you're not in the World Series, bro, that's a permanent defeat.
you're done.
Exactly. That's it, right? So while you have what you're saying, while you still have the affordability of time to adjust
Yeah.
and recognize that, a good friend of mine, he's an investor in the company too, said one time, and I can't remember what it was about. It wasn't to me, but it was in a group here. He's like, well, if you keep banging your head against the wall, it's still going to hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the common sense. So instead of like, oh man, but then that gets into victimhood and everything else. But it's
Oh,
like,
no, it really does. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And I'm not going to go down that route. There's a lot that's
Yeah.
talked about in today's culture around that too. And, the mentality of a victim, but I think that's glamorized now too.
Yeah, it is. Shifting topics again.
Yeah.
CRM, do you love it or do you hate it?
Oh, geez. I I have a love-hate relationship with it. And I don't think there's any really good tool out there that exists to really help through organic sales. Now, I will say this. If it's a CRM, I think every salesperson needs to keep track of their activities. in a way, even if it's just for themselves. Because I mean, so many opportunities, so many prospects, so many stages of the deal. A human brain can only handle so much. You only have a certain amount of bandwidth.
Yep.
If a deal gets pushed off for 3 months, you're never going to remember what that last conversation was unless you took some notes somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's great because CRMs are supposed to help you live in there, and do all that. But then it gets this word glamorized today. This is it, just being that way. It's like everybody thinks, at least in sales or in big corporations, like that's the answer to everything. And I've seen it overused where it's like, well, it's not in there, so it's not going to happen. I need you to update your pipeline. And the sales manager's just, I need you to update your pipeline. I need you to update your pipeline. That's the only thing that they care about.
Right.
That's it.
Yep.
Because they don't know how to manage, dude. They don't know how to lead.
No.
They don't even have a vision for their team, with the exception of, I want to be able to see that stuff in there. And this, because this is what my boss is telling me to do.
Right. So I'm just checking that box. Done.
Exactly. If you're going to use it to help you stay on top of your activities that you should be doing as a salesperson. Yep. Sure. I love it. If not, there's no reason for it to exist.
No, I agree. To me, I tell this to people all the time. I mean, I've been implementing CRM for a very long time now.
Yep.
And I tell people, look, all the time, this is a tool. It needs to be treated as such. So how am I going to best leverage this tool to accomplish my goal?
Yeah,
which is,
you got it.
I'm trying to sell more. I'm trying to build better relationships with my customers so I can maximize the benefits I'm delivering to them. And while I'm doing that, I'm maximizing the revenue impact for my company. It's a tool and it's meant to be that way. And unfortunately, so often it's not.
I know.
It's you say this all the time. It's that 2,000-ton anchor you're dragging behind you. To update
Totally.
your
And then it
pipeline.
just becomes an excuse for poor management, poor leadership to be able to eliminate what might be some good talent because they don't have the skill set to even pour into those individuals to begin with.
Right. And I love what you said earlier too, about I just did a presentation at a user conference on advanced dashboarding for sales.
Yeah.
And I made the comment that, if you really understand your business, there's a very limited a set of numbers, KPIs that you need to know, are we on track or not? 3 to 5 numbers, are we healthy or not? And maybe it's 2, and we talked about that, if like at McDonald's, your drive-through or any kind of fast food restaurant, you have 2 numbers. How quickly are we turning our orders and what's the average order size?
Right on.
I love that because that's any other business. If you know those numbers and CRM is feeding those numbers and everybody has visibility of those numbers, you're keeping people aligned and focused on what goal, where they should be driving towards. And so often I don't see that.
I know. Total agreement, man.
Yeah. We're at our time here. We went a little bit long, but that's it.
This was great, brother.
It goes by so fast when we're having a great conversation. I wish we could keep talking longer, Rick. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure.
People want to reach out and connect with you if they want to just learn more about all the different things you're doing, or if they just want to connect and do business with you. What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, follow me. LinkedIn and Instagram are my 2 biggest platforms, especially Instagram. You can DM me there. There's so much business that even happens there nowadays too, and then it's vice versa. But LinkedIn, everything is Mr. Rick Jordan, Mr. Rick Jordan.
That's awesome. If you didn't get that, that's okay. To be in our show notes, you can get that at impellercrm.com/sales lead dog, where you'll get show notes for this episode as well, our 100+ episodes of Sales Lead Dog. Be sure to check that out and subscribe so you get all our future episodes. Rick, this has been awesome. It's so much fun for me every episode I do, and this definitely was a great, fun episode for me. I really appreciate you giving me this gift of your time, and welcome to the Sales Lead Dog Pack.
Thank you, brother.
As we end this discussion on Sales Lead Dog, be sure to subscribe to catch all our episodes. On social media, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Watch the videos on YouTube, and you can also find our episodes on our website at impellercrm.com/Sales Lead Dog. Sales Lead Dog is supported by Impeller CRM. delivering objectively better CRM for business, guaranteed.